Hey, Michael here. I quickly want to get into revenue decreases and what that has to do with having an initial offer, then it gets readjusted. Why does that happen? And if it hasn't happened to you, pay close attention. I have a lot of people who've gone through this, who are going through it at this moment as we speak, and will continue to happen in the future. Where, let's say, for example, you're given an offer, let's say it's a $35,000 offer. Okay, now when did you get that offer? Let's say it's at the later end of the month. We're 3 to 4 weeks in, and it's not 2 weeks in below. I recommend when you get an application to start it in the beginning of the month, have that offer and accept that offer before we go into about the third, even midway sometime of that month, whenever that may be. So why I say it, it's because I have a lot of individuals who have an offer, let's say October 25th, they were given an offer, October 26th, whenever it is, we're at the later end of the month, and they choose to accept it. They don't decline, they accept it. And what we initially then have to go and do is a link verification, a bank verification with decision logic. It's very safe and secure, where the lender will then deposit ACH into your account and they can do an ACH withdrawal so they can get their money back. But in this stage of the process, after you've signed the contracts, the decision logic link you get, then the lender, they'll be able to see what's happening day to day in that, let's say, for example, October month of bank statements. Okay, well, they're seeing things like, okay, there's a decrease in sales. We're seeing revenue declining from month to month, same trend under the month to date. How much did they deposit? So where this can be a problem and a headache for you, it's okay, well, I had an initial offer of 35,000, but I've only deposited 14,000, and we're in the late of the month in October. We're about to get into November, or whatever month it is, it corresponds to. This is a situation where the offer is then readjusted because of how much you're making in revenue and what you're depositing. Does it make sense for us to give you 35 or 45,000, whatever it initially could have been, if you're depositing less and way less? No. That's trouble. That's a recipe for disaster. You could end up in a default. You may think you can make the payments if you took this, you can double it, but it doesn't work that way. We're not projecting that entirely to be certain. What if something goes down in your business and you don't have access to that thing or those things you needed, and so your revenue now goes down? So if you're fluctuating, that's also another concern, which I'll jump into in a moment. But these are situations where you have to jump on top of that offer and respond to it, whether you want it or not. If you don't want it, at least say no. I can go ahead and clarify why this is something that would be of benefit and why it exceeds the repayment. And if it doesn't, you'll let me know. But at the same time, this is a situation where if you're at the later end of the month and you accept an offer, and let's say October, we roll into November, you haven't accepted, we're on the last day of October, and you haven't accepted anything, then the next month that comes on, then we'll need a new month of bank statements or a month-to-date bank transaction report just to see what's going on. And so things like the link verification with decision logic, that can be a testament to, hey, we will give you the same offer because everything is consistent. You didn't have those types of revenue dips. It's not fluctuating tremendously for us to do that. But in a situation like this, it could have been any month. Let's say we're in November going into December and you have an offer and you accepted it late November, 20th through the 30th, or even a little bit before the 20th. What happens is, okay, well, we're about to roll over into December. We have to make sure everything looks clean regardless. And so when we're doing that link verification, we have to understand what you are doing in deposits and revenue. So it's not always the case that you should get an application in the very beginning of the month. You can sometimes do it in the later stages of that month. But here's the thing. As the time in the month goes on, what happens with your depositing and your revenue? You're possibly doing less. It's fluctuating now. Whoa, we were here before. That's why we gave you a $35,000 offer. And now it's mid-November. We're at the end of November. Boom, your sales probably went like this in the beginning. Then they went like this. Or they went like this and then they dipped up. So it actually helps you. But if you're doing this, no, your sales, you're depositing, guess what? After that link verification, there could be a readjustment in your offer. So it is one thing to say, get it done at the beginning if you can, when you're generating the highest amount, of revenue in depositing, because those infrequent deposits, less in revenue and deposits with your month to date, we're seeing the same trend. It's going to have to readjust your offer after that link verification. And like I said, yes, it can do with you submitting it later in the month, because the sales that you're generating before, up until that point, it may have done this or this. And so we're seeing less deposits than the month before, where you had a $30,000 deposit, and that's what we kind of more or less gave you the offer that you were given. But this time we're seeing a loss in revenue and loss in sales and how much you're actually depositing. So revenue declines. Everybody's in a different situation. If you should submit yours at the beginning of the month, in the middle of the month, towards the end of the month, especially if you're consistent with your sales, if that's okay, and you're doing it at the later stages of the month, just know that if you're doing this and you submit an application later on, well, there's going to be a readjustment in the offer, and we have to take account into the current month. But if you're in a situation where you're like consistent, maybe you just boom, you blast it up in this month, and you're submitting an application late October, late November, whenever it is, and it's okay. It's like, okay, it's fine. We may not even have to make a readjustment at all, but that's why it's so pivotal. And I always recommend that you come in on a higher revenue month, your last 3 months, last 3 to 6 months, however much is needed to be submitted. And if you're having revenue dips and you're projecting, okay, oh, mid-October, mid-November, I'm not going to be in a situation, my sales are going down, now's the time to get in. That's what you need to do. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait. Or you're going to have to wait some time, and that month is going to weigh heavily on the other 2 or 3 months that we have to submit in terms of bank statements. So if you're depositing 35,000, 40, and then 30, and then recent month you have 14, 15, 16, like, yeah, we have to readjust because you cannot afford more. And then if you even came back and applied the next month, it wouldn't make so much of a difference. We're still taking that tail end of that 14, 15K or whatever that deposit it is, that amount deposited, and we're looking at the other 35, 40. Well, hey, we can't give you 35, like you have a low month. So keep that in mind. And if you are fluctuating in revenue, regardlessly, we got you 3 months of bank statements looked at, 6 months, whatever the case is. 6 months gives us a better history. If we looked at 3 months, which is a lot of cases what we want, well, what are you doing? Are you fluctuating? Yeah, you say you're doing 2.5 million, 3 million. You had some starting bank balances that were high, but your depositing is very infrequent. Okay, you did 120,000, and then you did 40, and then you did 60, and then you went to 80, but then you went back to 50. So how can we justify giving you over 100,000 like you think you should get, or what you think you should? We're probably gonna go in between 40 to 60, 40 to 80, more or less. And there's a lot more we look at. So that's all I want to say here in this video. Please be understanding that everybody's in a different position. I would prefer you get started when you have your highest revenue month and not wait till like the mid of a month or even towards the end if your revenue is then and your depositing is going down. And if you can only afford to do that, okay, but just be understanding that there may be a readjusted offer when we do a bank verification and we see your sales, we see what you're depositing in it is, and it comes to this. Now, don't let that be a letdown. Let that be a lesson. And now you know more about how this works. So that'll be everything from me. And keep looking out for my content. If you're watching this in the course, continue to the next lesson. If you haven't picked up the course, I'll try to leave it down below in the description, my Business Funding Mastery Academy course. And that'll be everything. Talk soon. Bye.